Coming up on District Wire News, another crisis looms as Japan continues a long recovery from last week's devastation. We've got a live interview with an American university student whose family lives in Japan.
And then, thousands of teachers and public workers in Maryland protest potential budget cuts after Governor Martin O'Malley looks to close the state's more than $1 billion budget gap by cutting money for schools. Find out what that might mean for teachers and the school district. Wire News starts now.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Borden.
And I'm Yesenia Alfaro.
The devastation continues in Japan in the wake of an earthquake and tsunami. As the death toll rises and lines for food and water get longer, the Japanese are now dealing with yet another looming crisis. Last week's devastating earthquake in Japan has left those there digging out and searching for the missing. But as if the trauma of the devastation weren't enough, the Japanese are dealing with the third explosion in 4 days at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. 500,000 residents have been evacuated and the remaining told to move even farther away. Radiation readings have been at dangerous levels, including off the Japanese coast. Still, residents are remaining calm. There are reports of long lines for food, but no incidents of looting or crime in some of the hardest hit places. The American ambassador says it's time for Americans to be there for the Japanese.
America is one of Japan's closest friends. This is a time when our country needs to step up.
As Japan digs out, officials are also preaching calm, saying that the impending situation in Japan does not match the 1986 fallout after Chernobyl in Russia.
Radiation is spreading further and further from the site and being detected, for example, out to sea and in very, very low levels in Tokyo. So the implications are that the spread of radiation is increasing rather than being controlled, and the implications of that for Japan are devastating.
As Japan continues to grieve, they are also preparing for a long, emotional recovery. Many Americans have become increasingly worried that nuclear fallout could reach Hawaii or California, but experts say that it is highly unlikely radiation could travel that far.
Stock markets worldwide went down because investors are worried about the prospect of nuclear catastrophe in Japan. Overnight, Tokyo's main index slipped 10%. The Dow Jones also fell around 200 points. That number is up from the Dow's low open. Looking for security, investors pulled money out of stocks and invested in the American dollar.
More than 70 members of the Fairfax Urban Search and Rescue Team are in Japan today helping with disaster relief. Others in the D.C. area are helping too, from rescue teams to college students. People right here in the metro area are reaching out however they can. Kate Musselwhite has the story.
Virginia Task Force 1 from Fairfax, Virginia, is setting up camp in the coastal town of Ofanato and brought along 30 tons of equipment to help them in their search for survivors of this latest disaster. Other people in the metro area are helping from home. Natalie Fenimore with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington says giving money to the church's relief fund is the best thing concerned church members can do to help.
I think people are anxious to figure out a way to help, and so this fund was put in place so that people could be able to begin their helping.
Disaster relief organizations in the U.S. say Americans have donated more than $20 million since Friday, with millions more pouring in from American businesses. Most of the money has gone to the Red Cross, which is using the web and social media to raise money for victims. The topic is trending on Twitter, and people are donating with the click of a mouse through the organization's website, blog, and Facebook page. Americans have given almost $2 million through text message donations alone. Japanese American students here on campus are also raising money. Arisa Yokukura, president of the Japanese American Student Alliance at AU, says the group wants to support both those suffering in Japan and here in the U.S.
We've had members who are from the areas that have been hit the worst, who haven't been able to contact their friends. There's people personally on the JASUI board who couldn't contact their family until just a couple days ago, and some who still haven't been able to get in touch with a lot of friends or relatives, so it's really hard on everyone.
Japanese American student groups from up and down the East Coast have teamed up to start a relief fund. Jinte Kim, president of the Japanese Career Development Group on campus, says they are trying to spread the word to as many people as possible.
We are working on it with like 12 different universities right now, and then we're trying to expand it like all over the U.S.
The groups are planning a fundraising event this weekend to raise money and honor Japanese traditions. They plan to make origami paper cranes and decorate a giant Japanese flag to send to those suffering overseas. The event will be held from 12 to 3 p.m. this Sunday, March 20th, here at Cafe Asia in Arlington. People will pay $5 at the door, and during that 3-hour period, the restaurant will donate 10% of its sales to the Relief Fund. For District Wire News, I'm Kate Musselwhite.
Businesses in downtown Bethesda are improving security to their stores after one employee of the Lululemon Athletica store was murdered and another employee was sexually assaulted Friday evening. Catherine Rollman has a report.
Bethesda business owners are heightening security after the double sexual assault and homicide Friday night in downtown Bethesda. Shopkeepers say they're scared after the 2 Lululemon Athletic employees were beaten and raped. Police say they don't have video surveillance of the attack. Daddy and Son Clothing is located on Bethesda Row, a few doors down from the yoga store. The co-owner says she's being cautious and having cameras installed inside her store.
I wanted to be able to go out into the community, have a good time, bring my kids down, be more aware of what's going on. Obviously with the cameras being more safe inside the store, especially because a lot of times I am, myself or just my husband or just one of us or someone else who works, just the one person.
For now, Lululemon's doors remain closed and paper covers the windows of the crime scene. Police officials say they've increased patrol cars in the area and they're looking for the 2 male suspects who wore dark clothing, gloves, and masks. There is a $136,000 reward fund for information. Police say the surviving woman has been released from the hospital but continues her recovery. The investigation at Lululemon is still ongoing, but shopkeepers tell me they're taking extra precautions and improving security measures. In Bethesda, for District Wire News, I'm Catherine Rollman.
A Maryland man was sentenced to 15 years of jail time in Cuba. 61-year-old Alan Gross was found guilty on Saturday for illegally bringing computer gear onto the island. His family says he was trying to improve internet access for Cuba's Jewish community. Gross has already been in prison for 15 months. His family and the U.S. government are asking for his immediate release.
Former Mayor Adrian Fenty is off the hook. An outside investigator says there is nothing wrong about how Fenty awarded contracts for parks and recreation centers. The contracts to his friends and fraternity brothers became an issue during Fenty's unsuccessful re-election campaign. The report was released Monday after a year-long investigation.
Thousands of Maryland teachers are protesting Governor Martin O'Malley's budget. The plan would cut about $100 million from the schools' budgets. Karina Stenquist has the story.
Teachers, students, and other state workers marched Monday night in Annapolis. They came on buses from across the state, ringing school bells and repeating one clear message to the governor.
This isn't a union, anti-union issue. This is an education of young people issue. These are our children, our students, and our future. I think everybody can rally around that.
On top of statewide cuts, Prince George's County schools would lose another $20 million because of decreased enrollment.
We're going to have to cut 1,000, 1,300 positions. In smaller jurisdictions, it's just as impactful. St. Mary's County is losing over 100 positions. Positions are going to be lost all across the state.
Protesters say they understand that cuts need to be made. It's just a question of priorities.
Government bailed out big business. All the CEOs got their raises and bonuses, and us teachers, we just want to keep our jobs.
Changes to the pension system are the other sticking point. Under the new budget, public employees would have a choice. Either they can pay 5% of their salary into their pension and get fewer benefits, or increase to 7% to keep their current benefits. New state workers wouldn't have a choice and would all start at 7%.
At the moment, Maryland is facing $19 billion in unfunded pension liabilities and $16 billion in retiree health liabilities. Governor O'Malley has said the changes are needed to address what he calls the, quote, unsustainable math of the current benefit pension system.
Well, I don't know enough about economics, but I can't imagine that cutting from schools and cutting from students is ever going to lead to any kind of sustainable future for our state.
Teachers say even though they have a good relationship with O'Malley and Maryland schools are ranked #1 in the country, they still need to fight to keep their funding.
How can we be first in the nation and last on the legislation? So it's just like it doesn't make sense. So yeah, you can have a great relationship, but at the same time, the proof is in the pudding, and you show people that it's important by funding it.
Other changes that would affect all state employees, not just teachers, is an increase in the years it takes to be vested in the system and a raising of the early retirement age to 60 from 55.
As night falls, the crowd is still excited, listening to speakers, still animated and still adamant that any cuts to this system will be too much, especially cuts to education. In Annapolis, for District Wire News, I'm Karina Stenquist.
The Maryland State Senate voted today to allow undocumented high school students the ability to pay in-state tuition for college. There would be several requirements for the high school students, like proving that parents have paid taxes. The Maryland House still needs to take up the issue.
A fraternity pledge ends up foaming at the mouth and experiencing seizures after drinking a bottle of soy sauce. The University of Virginia student was recently released from a 4-day stay in the hospital. Police suspect hazing. Annie Stevens has more.
Dog food and soy sauce. That's what this UVA Zeta Psi pledge reportedly ate before his trip to the hospital. Some say hazing is an important part of pledging, something every fraternity brother has to go through to be a real part of the group. At American University, though, fraternity members say hazing pledges by making them do unsafe things just doesn't make sense. Michael Mullen says pledging is important because it allows them to share experiences that make them close. But he says traumatic hazing shouldn't be a part of that process.
Shared experience is something that they'll make memories about, because the most important thing for us is putting the kids in a position where they can make memories for each other.
Andre Stoller says he doesn't see any point to that kind of dangerous hazing, but he says there is a constructive way to get pledges to bond.
But they can have miserable experiences without putting their lives and you know their moral standings at risk. You know, like you can have a difficult time doing something without getting hurt or without doing illegal stuff that's going to put you in jail.
As police continue to investigate what happened at University of Virginia, students at American University tell me that that kind of hazing is not a part of fraternity life here. For District Wire News, I'm Annie Stevens.
Coming up after the break, damaged dorm. The Sky Lounge in Letts Hall at American University is vandalized. Find out who is going to have to pay up and what it means for students who want to use the lounge.
And then, a Superstore's planned move to DC is making small businesses owners on Georgia Avenue nervous. Find out what residents and owners are doing about it after the break.